My name is Sable Hart, and I'm 35. I grew up in a single wide off a county road where the porch light was our security system, and every winter meant bargaining with the power company. I learned early that no cavalry was coming, just me, a checklist, and the gut-deep belief that if I stacked enough quiet, disciplined days, I'd get out and stay out. I did. Finance degree, night shifts, a first apartment with thin walls and a door that locked. Eventually, a role I was good at, risk modeling, the unsexy math that keeps the reckless from bankrupting the room. My life ran on routine: make coffee, make lists, make progress. Then I met Victor. He was charisma in a well-cut jacket. Weekends were spontaneous dinners and breathless plans. Mondays were his what-if speeches about ideas he never wrote down. I told myself he brought color to my grayscale that opposites balance. He told me I made him feel anchored. It sounded like love with complementary skill sets. We moved in together after a year. Year 2, the game started. Tiny, deniable tests. He'd cancel at the last minute to see if I'd be chill, flirt loudly with a waitress to watch my face. When I named it, he called me sensitive. When I was quiet, he called me cold. If I asked where he was, I was controlling. If I didn't care enough. I adapted the way people like me always adapt. I took notes. The night this story begins, we were splitting takeout at the island. Him scrolling, me peeling the lid off lukewarm lo mein. He didn't look up when he said it. I need you to meet someone Saturday, Brianna. I kept my voice smooth. Who's Brianna? My ex. He twirled noodles around a fork. It's important for me that you can handle me having female friends. I need to know you're not one of those jealous girlfriends. We're not married. He doesn't get to say wife, but girlfriend felt like an understudy for the part I was actually playing. Rock, wallet, audience. When? I asked. 8, Meridian Lounge. She suggested it. Of course she did. I smiled. Sure, sounds fine. He was expecting a scene. I gave him manners. He narrowed his eyes for a second, confused that the lever he loved pulling didn't move the room, and then looked pleased with himself. Good, he said, hand grazing my shoulder the way people pat loyal dogs. This is mature. I put my carton down. Vic? Yeah? If she's just a friend, what am I proving? He didn't answer. He just kissed my temple and took our trash to the sink like he'd solved something. What he didn't know, 3 weeks earlier, my brother Cole texted me during a budget meeting. You need to see this. Don't react at work. 3 photos. A cafe window. Victor and a woman I didn't recognize at first. Soft waves, blazer, flawless lipstick, Brianna. Photo 1. Their fingers locked across the table. Photo 2. Her palm on his jaw like he was a delicate thing you savor. Photo 3. A kiss you don't mistake for just friends. I didn't confront him. I downloaded our bank statements, found Whitmore Cafe, $72.83 at the same time he told me he was visiting his sister. I looked at the hotel charge for $238, clothed as helping a friend from out of town. I watched the late-night text smiles, the shower immediately after girls' night, the angled phone. I'm not vengeful by nature. I am, however, thorough. Cole called me the next afternoon from his car. You breathing? Counting to 1,000, I said. What's the plan? Let him test me, I said. Then I'll test them. What do you need? Background on Brianna Whitmore. Work. Family. Anyone who should know what she's doing and doesn't. He whistled. You're cold. I'm calm, I said. There's a difference. 2 days later, he called back with the file. You'll love this. Hit me. Brianna's engaged. Nicholas Brennan, as in Brennan Consulting. His dad is Michael Brennan. He owns the place. Old school reputation, family values, ethics posters in the lobby, the whole catechism. So she's risk managing her brand in public and risk maximizing in private. Pretty much. Send it. Already did, he paused. Sabes, you sure you want to do this alone? I'm never alone, I said and meant it. I went shopping that afternoon, but not for a dress. There's a security supply storefront near the courthouse. Sleek as a jeweler, brighter than a hospital. A sales guy in a navy polo showed me a pen with a tiny camera nestled in the clip. 1080p, he said, proud of the number. 4 hours continuous, good mic range. Looks like a mid-level executive pen. We sell a lot of these to, let's just say, professionals. I'm a professional, I said, and bought 2. I added a matchbox-sized voice recorder, Voice activated, 12-hour battery, as backup. That night, the city breathed through the blinds and Victor scrolled himself to sleep. I lay awake and rehearsed being still. Stillness is what people like Victor mistake for weakness. It is, in fact, a loaded stage. Saturday came like a timer hitting 0. He wore a navy shirt that made his eyes look lighter. I wore black. Clean lines, hair back, lip balm, no gloss. The pen clipped into my jacket like an afterthought. The recorder in my pocket like a heartbeat. We drove in silence, his knee bouncing with the high of someone who thinks he's directing the show. Meridian was lighting and leather and curated laughter. Brianna stood when she saw us, a glassy, expensive kind of beautiful. She hugged Victor first, too long, hands too low, then turned to me with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Sable, I've heard so much about you," she said. I smiled back. "Only the best, I'm sure." We sat. Victor slid in beside her, not across from her. Territorial, deliberate. The server appeared. Brianna ordered a bottle of sparkling something that cost more than my first month's rent. For 20 minutes, they performed Nostalgia, their vineyard weekend, a summer with insane chemistry, little digs cleaned up as jokes. "So you do risk numbers?" Brianna asked sweetly, chin on her hand. "That must be safe." "I like knowing where the ground is," I said. Victor laughed a little too loud. "Bri loved men who jump." "She loved? Past tense?" I asked gently. Brianna's teeth glinted. "Some things you don't outgrow. You revisit." The pen watched, the recorder listened. I let the barbs pass like weather. Then Victor excused himself to the restroom. Brianna's smile slipped. The room rebalanced. She angled toward me, voice softer, predator pleasant. "Look, Sable, tonight is mostly about you," she said. "Vic needs to see you don't panic. He hates clingy." "I'm not panicking," I said. "I'm assessing." Her brows knit, faintly impressed. "You're very composed." "I practice," I said. "Tell me something honest, Brianna, woman to woman." She tilted her head. "Depends. Is this nostalgia for you, or current tense?" Her lips curved, slow. "Define current." "Present continuous," I said, and didn't blink. She laughed, low and delighted. "We're close. Very. Closer than he lets himself admit. He misses how alive he felt with me." She leaned in, conspiratorially. "We don't just talk, if that's what you're asking." "Clarity helps," I said evenly. "Are you sleeping with my boyfriend?" Her gaze held mine, savored the question. Then, "Every time we can." My chest didn't move. The pen did its quiet work. Victor came back, washed hands and bright grin. He slid closer to her, arm along the booth, eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd crack. When I didn't, he looked relieved, like a teacher whose student finally got the right answer. He brushed my knuckles with his. "You did great," he said with warmth that felt like lint. "You passed the test." I smiled small, left cash on the tray, and stood. "Good to know," I said. Then I walked out into the kind of night air that tells the truth about people. Who chases, who hides, who records when it matters. Behind me, the lounge door side shut. In my pocket, the recorder was a warm coin. In my jacket, the pen held a confession I didn't have to survive twice. The test was over. Mine was beginning. The elevator hummed me up 12 floors like a slow exhale. Back in my apartment, I set my jacket on the counter, the way surgeons set instruments on a sterile tray. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't pace. I plugged the pen into my laptop and watched a blue bar climb across the screen, importing. "Answer," Cole texted. "I've had hives for an hour waiting." I hit call. He picked up on the first ring. "Well?" "I have it," I said. That sentence means different things depending on context. The on-camera kind. I let the quiet stretch, then added, "Exact words, no ambiguity." He blew out a breath that sounded like a laugh, swallowing a curse. "Okay. Send me the raw and park a copy on an external. 2, actually. And the cloud. I'll bring the drive to you." I paused. "Cole?" "Yeah?" "Don't say proud of you. Not yet. It feels like mislabeling." He was quiet for a beat. "Understood. Label it, executing the plan." "Better." I washed my hands like I'd come from a hospital shift, then set up my desk the way I set up quarterly risk reviews. Light to the left, notes to the right, nothing sentimental. The software loaded the video's thumbnail. Meridian's amber glow, Brianna's perfect angles, Victor's shoulder pressed into hers. I watched it once through without sound, just tracking posture and reach. The way Brianna's hand hovered over his thigh when she spoke, the way his body tilted toward her like plants lean toward windows. Then I watched with audio. Clean, crisp, a whisper, and a bell. The confession was soft, intimate, not even mean. That's what made it lethal. Every time we can. I clipped the 20 minutes around it into a neat reel. Led up, the baited question, her answer, Victor's return, his, "You passed the test." I added timestamps and a single-line caption for context. I didn't add music. Truth doesn't need violins. At 1:32 a.m., I knocked on Cole's door. He opened with a cable in his teeth and a hoodie that read, "Property of no one." He kissed my temple, took the drive, and went straight to work like we were scrubbing a crime scene. Except the crime scene was a lounge and the blood was arrogance. "Who gets it?" he asked, hands already on keys. "Nicholas first," I said. "He didn't do anything except believe a woman he planned to marry. He deserves a clean cut, not gossip." Then Michael Brennan. "Not because I want anyone fired, because integrity isn't a bumper sticker, or it's nothing." "Copy," Cole said. "Right, and I'll be your meanest editor." I drafted with the same tone I'd use for a regulator. Plain, respectful, verifiable. I didn't call Brianna names. I didn't mention Victor's habit of tests. I didn't editorialize that people who light matches in dry grass shouldn't be surprised by fire. I attached a password-protected link and a one-sentence summary of what they would see. Cole trimmed the extra courtesy from my prose until the bones showed. While he exported, I opened a spreadsheet I'd been building for 3 weeks. Unauthorized expenditures. Every dinner, every ride share, every boutique. I tagged each line, shared funds or personal and color-coded charges that occurred on nights Victor claimed boys' night or late at the gym. Facts are cool water. They don't forgive, but they don't lie. "Sabies," Cole said, eyes still on the screen. "You sure you want to be the one who presses send?" "Yes, because once you do, no one forgets your fingerprints." "Good," I said softly. "I'm not hiding. I'm documenting." We hit send at 2:07 a.m., one email to Nicholas with the link and password, one to Michael with the same, plus 3 sentences about character and representation. No threats, no ask, only information. I went home to finish the surgical list. We didn't share a house deed or a last name, but shared accounts turned breakups into ledger wars. I moved my direct deposits to a personal account, suspended the joint card, flagged a cluster of charges for review, changed every password I could list from memory. I emailed the building concierge a photo of Victor with the subject line, "Do not grant access without my approval." I updated the alarm code and the Wi-Fi name to Not Your Show out of pure, quiet pettiness. The small mercies we allow ourselves. By dawn, the city had a gray throat and the birds were doing their cheerful amnesia. I showered long enough to steam the mirror, then sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the dent his pillow had left, a crescent like a thumbprint on dough. The human part of me, the part that never wanted to be this exact, sighed once and then went silent. The adult part closed the bedroom door, walked to the kitchen, and made coffee strong enough to stand a spoon. At 8:11 a.m., my phone lit with an unknown number. I let it ring out. At 8:12, a text from a different unknown number. "Nicholas, thank you for the password. I have received and watched. I appreciate your clarity more than I can express right now." A minute later, "Please tell me if you wish me to return your email, but I think I need quiet." I typed, "I won't contact you again. I'm sorry." He sent a single thumbs up, which somehow hurt more than rage would have. At 8:34, another text. The name on top made my throat go cold. Michael Brennan. "Ms. Hart, I received your note. The content is clear. You need no reply from me, but you have one. Understood." I stared at the last word until the letters became shapes. Understood is a weather pattern. It says, "Wheels are turning elsewhere." At 9:02, Victor called. At 9:03, he called again. At 9:04, he left a voicemail so cheerful it was almost parody. "Babe, last night was good for us. I'm proud of you. Bree thought you were super gracious." At 9:07, he texted, "My card is weird. Did the bank glitch?" At 9:10, Sable. Seriously, it's embarrassing at the gas station. At 9:12, answer. I didn't. I emailed the moving company I'd used when I got promoted last year and scheduled a same-day pickup for 24 banker boxes. While they confirmed, I pulled the empty cartons from the hall closet and started a rhythm. Fold, tape, label. Victor, closet. Victor, shoes. Victor, barware, cheap. The act of packing is an X-ray. You see which parts of someone's life weigh more than they should. He had 3 cocktail shakers and 1 passport cover, 4 cufflink sets, and a shoebox of concert stubs. I put everything in its shape and wrote the shapes down. The buzzer sounded at noon. The movers were early and professionally gentle. They stacked the boxes with a Tetris hunger and didn't ask why I wasn't crying, which made me almost love them. I tipped heavy and told the concierge the pickup location. When the door closed, I breathed out a fraction I hadn't realized I was holding. The apartment looked airier, as if we'd opened a window in a room I didn't know was stale. On the counter, my laptop pinged with an email from a Brennan Consulting address. Delivery failure notice. Brianna's corporate inbox no longer existed. I set my mug down and allowed myself one raised eyebrow. Not joy, alignment. At 1:46, Victor tried the buzzer downstairs. The Ring camera framed him blue-eyed and incensed, jaw a hard line even from the warped fisheye. "Open the door," he said into the speaker. "No," I said. "Security has been notified you require my consent to enter. You don't have it." His laugh was the same one he used to use with waiters when a dish was wrong. "Don't be dramatic, Sable. You organized a public examination of my jealousy while sleeping with your ex," I said calmly. "I'm under quota for drama." He stared at the lens, choosing a face. He landed on conciliatory. "Let me up. We should talk like adults." "We will," I said, "through written channels only." "What does that even mean? We're not in court." "Then consider this mediation." He swore under his breath and tried another angle. "You're overreacting to a test. In your test, I pass only if I pretend not to see. In mine, I pass only if I do." He pounded the glass door twice. The concierge appeared like a polite ghost and asked, "Everything okay?" I held the intercom button and said, "Mr. Martinez, please remind him of the note." Mr. Martinez nodded. Victor looked from him to the camera and then away, the universal language of men who realize the audience won't clap this time. At 2:03, a text from an unknown number. "Brianna, we need to talk. I have no idea what you think you have." At 2:05, "If you sent anything to Nicholas, you've made a massive mistake. You've hurt an innocent person." At 2:06, "I'm calling you." I replied with a single line. "I shared a video in which you identify your conduct. Do not contact me again." She didn't stop. At 2:09, a wall of messages. Lectures about privacy, insinuations about illegality, thinly veiled threats about defamation. I answered none. I forwarded the thread to a folder named Counsel. I am not a lawyer, but I know how paperwork becomes armor. By 3, my phone had quieted to a mosquito whine. I opened the balcony door and let the company of cars fill the room. Somewhere below, a siren stretched like a tired cat. I thought about the girl I'd been at 22, eating dollar slices and promising the ceiling I would build a life where my peace didn't depend on someone else's weather. I thought about how often we mistake chaos for passion, tests for intimacy, winning for worth. At 3:47, Cole texted a link to a trade bulletin, Brennan Consulting Parts Ways with Senior Staffer. The piece was brief and bloodless, the way corporations launder crisis into realignments. It didn't name Brianna, but it didn't have to. In our city, people read between lines the way they read horoscopes, some for omens, some for blame. Cole followed with, Nicholas's mother sent a note to his friends list asking for privacy. She used the phrase, grateful for the truth. I typed, then deleted, then typed. Good. He wrote, you ate your vegetables, Sabes. The dessert is boring on purpose. I smiled at the screen. Boring is the goal. At dusk, the apartment turned lavender and spare. I took a photo of the room for no one, proof of a space returning to itself. On the counter, the pen lay next to my keys, small and unimportant. If you didn't know, you'd think it was just something to sign with. Most instruments of change look like that, ordinary until they aren't. At 8:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a final text from Victor. Tell me you didn't send anything, please. Sable, answer, please. I set the phone face down. Tomorrow would be logistics, accounts, a bland email to landlords of places Victor might try to crash, forwarding service for the boxes. The day after would be sleep. The day after that, maybe breakfast with too much butter. Tonight, the city exhaled, and for once, I exhaled with it. There's a strange calm that comes after exposure, like the quiet between thunder and rain. The sky holds its breath, waiting to see who'll break first. By Sunday morning, I knew it wouldn't be me. The pen sat on my desk beside a half-drunk cup of coffee. Its black surface reflected the morning light like an eye, unblinking, patient. I replayed the footage one more time, every word, every laugh, every cruel little smile. When Victor said, "You passed the test," I looked closer at his expression. He wasn't proud. He was relieved. Because in his head, control meant safety. He needed to believe I was too calm to ever leave. He was wrong. That afternoon, I drove to my brother Cole's place. He lived on the west side, condo by the marina, a clean life with a wife who adored him and 2 kids who thought he hung the moon. When I pulled up, he was already outside on the balcony, holding 2 mugs like he'd seen me coming in a dream. "Coffee's still hot," he said as I stepped inside. "You look too awake for someone who probably spent half the night online watching this blow up," I said. He smirked. "You know me. Schadenfreude keeps the heart young." We sat, sipping quietly while gulls screeched over the water. "So," Cole said finally, "what's the plan? You already sent the emails, you boxed his stuff, you cut the cards. What's left?" "Now," I said, "I wait." "For what?" "For the fallout to finish burning." He nodded slowly. "You sure you're not enjoying this just a little?" "I'm not enjoying anything," I said, though that wasn't entirely true. What I felt wasn't joy. It was something colder and cleaner, like stepping out of a storm and realizing the air finally smells like itself again. By Monday morning, the city had caught up with the story. I woke to an inbox flooded with subject lines like re-clarification request, internal compliance, and media inquiry, no comment. I hadn't said a word publicly, but I didn't have to. The truth had its own megaphone. At 9:24 a.m., a message from Michael Brennan arrived. "Ms. Hart, we've completed our internal review. The conduct you documented is verified. The employee in question is no longer affiliated with Brennan Consulting Group. Thank you for your discretion and professionalism. MB." Short, surgical, final. Less than 10 minutes later, Victor called again. I let it ring until the sound became background noise. Then came another voicemail, half anger, half panic. "Sable, I know you think you're being righteous, but you just cost someone their career. You think that makes you the good guy? You didn't even give me a chance to explain." I hit play on the next one. "Fine. Don't answer. But you should know Brianna's life is imploding. Nicholas dumped her, her company's in chaos, and she's blaming you. You want that on your conscience?" I deleted it. My conscience was clear, because the truth was, I hadn't destroyed anyone. They'd done it themselves. I'd just turned the lights on. Tuesday came with quiet. No calls, no door knocks, no buzzing phone. The kind of silence that feels staged. I didn't trust it. I took the morning off work and walked the waterfront. Fishermen hauling nets, joggers with earbuds, tourists with cameras. They all looked alive in a way I hadn't felt for months. It's funny how betrayal can shrink your world until you start mistaking survival for peace. When I got back home, there was a knock on my door. 3 measured raps, the kind that know their timing. I looked through the peephole and almost laughed. Victor. He wasn't wearing his usual confidence. His hair was uncombed, shirt half tucked, eyes wild with the kind of desperation that only hits when you realize the performance is over. I opened the door just enough to let my voice through. "What do you want?" "To talk." "We already did." "You ruined me, Sable." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." He pushed against the door slightly, but I didn't move. "You don't understand. Everything's gone. My accounts, my job, my phone's blowing up. People think I'm some kind of monster." I tilted my head. "Do monsters usually take their exes to dinner and then brag about cheating on camera?" He flinched. "You set me up." "You set yourself up," I corrected. "I just pressed record." He stared at me, the silence stretching thin. Then, softer. "I never meant for it to go this far." I almost believed him. That's the problem with liars. They always sound sincere when they finally start telling the truth, because even honesty feels like manipulation in their mouths. "Victor," I said quietly, "you made me your experiment. Now you're just living in the results." He swallowed, eyes shining like he might cry, but I didn't feel anything. Please, he whispered, don't do this. I already did, I said, and closed the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, city lights flickering like distant lightning, and replayed every conversation we'd ever had, every moment he'd twisted concern into control, laughter into leverage. I'd mistaken his little tests for affection, his chaos for passion. He didn't want a partner, he wanted a mirror that admired him. And I'd finally stopped reflecting. By Wednesday, the public fallout was complete. Brianna had deleted every trace of herself from social media. Nicholas's engagement post vanished, replaced by a black and white photo of a mountain ridge captioned, "Some lessons cost more than others." Victor tried to play the victim online too, posting a long, vague paragraph about toxic relationships and trust issues. Within hours, the comments section turned into a graveyard. People knew. Screenshots spread faster than apologies. At 2 p.m., my building concierge called. "Ms. Hart, there's a gentleman in the lobby asking to see you." "Does this gentleman happen to be Victor?" "Yes, ma'am. He's insistent." "I'll be right down." When I reached the lobby, he was pacing near the front desk. The staff stood a few feet back, clearly uncomfortable. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red. "Don't make a scene," I said quietly. "I just want to talk." "You've said that 3 times already. Try something new." He stepped closer, voice cracking. "You think you're better than me now? Because you caught me? Because you humiliated me?" I crossed my arms. "No, Victor. I don't think I'm better. I just think I finally stopped pretending you were." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. For a second, I saw it. The boy under all that ego. The one who'd been told love is measured by control, but pity is a luxury I don't hand out anymore. "Go home," I said softly. "Where's that?" he asked, almost laughing. "That's not my problem." He stared a beat longer, then turned and walked out, the door closing behind him with a hollow click that sounded suspiciously like an ending. Back upstairs, I sat on my couch and stared at the reflection in my window. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd walked into that lounge a week ago. She looked steadier, not triumphant, just finished. Cole called later that evening. "You holding up?" "I'm fine," I said. "Liar," he said. I smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I'm fine enough." "Brennan's legal team reached out," he added. "They're keeping the footage sealed for privacy, but they might subpoena it if Brianna tries to claim wrongful termination." "Let them," I said. The truth doesn't mind being seen twice. When I finally went to bed, I thought about the way Brianna had leaned across that table, certain she was in control. The way Victor had smiled, thinking he'd passed some invisible test. But the real test had always been mine, and I'd pass by walking away. Tomorrow, there would still be paperwork, probably more drama. But tonight, I slept without checking my phone once. Because for the first time in years, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. You'd think the story ended when I closed that door on Victor, but endings don't arrive that neatly. They bleed. They test whether the quiet you fought for can survive the echoes that come after. By Thursday, the phone had gone silent again. No calls, no texts, not from Victor, not from Brianna, not even from Cole, who'd promised to give me breathing space. The apartment felt sterile, like a hotel room that forgot who it belonged to. I tried to fill the silence with music, but every song felt too on the nose. Breakup anthems, empowerment lyrics, thin metaphors about ashes and wings. I turned it all off and let the hum of the refrigerator be my soundtrack. That night, I pulled out the hard drive, the one labeled Evidence Master in neat capital letters, and opened the file again, not to gloat, not even to confirm, just to remind myself it was real. Because sometimes when the adrenaline fades, doubt creeps in. Did I go too far? Did I misread something? Was there another way? But the footage didn't lie. Brianna leaning forward, smirking. "Every time we can." Victor's proud grin right after. "You passed the test." I closed the laptop. No, I hadn't gone too far. I'd simply stopped standing in the fire, pretending not to burn. At midnight, the phone lit up again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut said, "Answer." "Hello?" For a moment, I heard nothing but breathing. Then, "Sablehart?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Detective Ward with the Cyber Division. I'm following up on an inquiry from Brennan Consulting." My pulse jumped, though his tone was measured. "An inquiry?" "Nothing criminal," he said quickly. "They just wanted confirmation that the media sent from your account wasn't part of a coordinated data breach. We've already confirmed it wasn't. You're in the clear." "I didn't hack anyone, Detective. I recorded my own property." "That's what we confirmed. Mr. Brennan requested discretion." "Then why call me?" He hesitated. "Off the record, Ms. Hart. They're cleaning house over there. The story's bigger than just your ex. That video you sent? It triggered a full internal audit. Looks like your ex's little affair was just one of several ongoing issues. I closed my eyes. How bad? Bad enough that half the senior team is in emergency meetings this week. You didn't just catch a cheater. You tripped a wire they'd been pretending didn't exist. He paused, then softened. Anyway, don't worry. You did nothing wrong. Just figured you should know your recording might have started something. Thank you, I said quietly. Take care of yourself, Ms. Hart. He hung up. I sat there in the dark, phone warm in my hand, the city flickering through the blinds. I hadn't planned to blow up an entire firm's ethics department, but maybe corruption deserves dominoes. For the first time since the lounge, I laughed. A small, sharp sound that felt like oxygen. Friday morning, Cole stopped by unannounced. He carried a bag of takeout, and that look he gets when he's equal parts proud and worried. You're trending in circles you never wanted to trend in, he said, sliding a newspaper onto my counter. The headline, Corporate Scandal Exposes Web of Affairs, Nepotism, and Misconduct. Below it, a blurred image of two silhouettes at the Meridian Lounge. They didn't use names, Cole said. But everyone knows. Word is Brennan Consulting is restructuring. Brianna's name's off the directory. She'll find a way to spin it, I said. Probably, but it won't matter. You can't rebuild a reputation on a foundation that cracked this loudly. He poured coffee, then eyed me over the rim of his cup. How are you holding up, really? I took a breath. Strangely peaceful, like the quiet after a long storm. I keep expecting guilt to show up, but it hasn't. Because you didn't do anything wrong, he said. I nodded. I know, but knowing and feeling aren't the same. He smiled. They'll get there. Eventually, the brain and the heart start sharing notes again. We ate in silence for a bit, the air filled with the smell of eggs and cinnamon. Then he said something I didn't expect. You know, Sable, sometimes revenge isn't about ruining someone else's life. It's about getting yours back. I looked at him. I didn't do it for revenge. I know, he said. That's what makes it poetic. That afternoon, a courier dropped off an envelope from my HR department. Inside was a note, an offer for a regional analyst promotion. The timing was eerie. I'd been shortlisted months ago, but the final decision had been delayed. Now, with my head clear, the decision made itself. I signed the acceptance letter, scanned it, and emailed it back within the hour. New role, new salary, new beginning. By Saturday, I'd finished scrubbing the last traces of Victor from my life. His clothes had been donated. His name was removed from the lease. The last shared subscription, Netflix, ironically, was canceled. There was only one loose thread left, a storage box labeled Victor Personal. Inside were things that didn't fit neatly into betrayal or closure, a watch I'd gifted him, a book he'd never finished reading, and a photo from the first trip we ever took together. We were smiling in that picture, both of us. Real smiles, not rehearsed ones. For a second, I almost felt sorry for that version of us. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. My hand wasn't in his. It was on the railing, steady, alone. Even back then, my body knew what my heart hadn't caught up to yet. I tore the photo in half, kept my piece, and dropped the rest into the shredder. That night, I wrote an email I never sent. To Victor. Subject. For the record. You once told me love was about proving you could survive the worst parts of each other. You were wrong. Love is about not making someone prove they deserve to be treated well. You didn't lose me because of Brianna. You lost me because I stopped needing your approval to breathe. Sincerely, Sable. I hovered over the send button for a long time. Then I deleted the draft. Some truths don't need to travel. They just need to exist. Before bed, I stepped out onto the balcony. The air was warm, the kind that makes the city smell like rain even when it isn't raining. Below me, lights from passing cars stitched themselves into ribbons. For the first time in months, I wasn't replaying anything. No questions, no what-ifs, no waiting for someone to change. Just quiet. And it was enough. It took exactly 6 days for silence to turn into noise again. Not the sharp kind, like sirens or shouting. This was slower, dripping. The sound of guilt trying to find somewhere to live. It started with an email. No subject line, no greeting, just, you win. No signature, but I didn't need one. The words were Victor's, clipped, self-pitying, typed like a sigh. I closed the email, didn't reply. By afternoon, another came in. You have no idea what you've done. She's lost everything. Her job, her friends, her fiancé. She's talking about suing you for defamation. Then a third, an hour later. I miss you. That one made me laugh. Quiet, breathy, incredulous laughter. The kind you let out when you realize the person who ruined you still thinks they're the victim. I didn't reply to that one either. The next day, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I answered, half expecting a telemarketer. Ms. Hart? A female voice asked, tight and clipped. This is Rachel, counsel for Ms. Brianna Whitmore. Do you have a moment? I leaned back in my chair. I suppose I do now. I'll be brief. My client has reason to believe you distributed private video recordings without her consent. This constitutes a violation of state privacy laws and... Counselor, I interrupted softly, is this the part where you threaten a lawsuit before checking jurisdiction? A pause. Excuse me? I recorded myself in a public setting during a conversation in which your client voluntarily admitted to an ongoing affair. One-party consent applies here. You can look it up. Her tone wavered slightly. Even so, the reputational damage is accurate, I said, not defamatory. I could almost hear her blinking. I see, she said finally. Then consider this a courtesy call. My client is distressed. So am I said and hung up. That night, Cole texted, check your socials. I opened Instagram. There it was, a story from a burner account, clearly Brianna's handwriting of chaos. A blurry image of two women at a table, me and her, from the recording, captioned, some women weaponize victimhood when they can't compete with passion. I screenshotted it, timestamped it, sent it to Cole with a single word, documented. I smiled. My favorite kind of justice, I murmured. Friday, 8 a.m. I was halfway through an espresso when the concierge called. Ms. Hart, there's a Ms. Whitmore downstairs requesting entry. I actually laughed out loud. Of course there is. She says she just wants to talk. She can talk to the intercom, I said. Put her through. A second later, the line clicked and Brianna's voice filled my foyer. You think you're untouchable now? She spat. Good morning to you too. I lost everything, Sable. Everything. Nicholas won't even answer my calls. Do you know what that's like? I imagine it feels familiar, I said, like what Victor used to put me through every time he tested my loyalty. This isn't about him, isn't it? There was silence on the other end, then a shaky breath. You think you're so righteous. You think people will remember you as the hero. They won't. They'll remember you as the woman who destroyed another woman out of jealousy. Jealousy, I echoed. You kissed my boyfriend and bragged about it on camera. You provoked me. I asked a question. You set a trap. You walked into it. Her voice broke then. That brittle edge people get when anger curdles into panic. You don't understand. I needed him. I needed someone to remind me I was still worth wanting. For a second, she didn't sound like the villain anymore. She sounded like someone clawing at the walls of her own loneliness. Brianna, I said quietly, you mistook destruction for validation. You burned your life down just to see if someone would watch. That's not passion, that's fear. You don't get to psychoanalyze me. I don't need to, I said. You're doing it yourself. The intercom buzzed. She'd hung up. I stared at the silent speaker and felt nothing. No triumph, no pity, just finality. At noon, Cole called. You made the news again. I groaned. What now? She went to a journalist, tried to spin it, said the footage was edited, that you entrapped her and Victor. And the outlet fact-checked it, asked for corroborating evidence. When she couldn't produce any, they killed the story, quietly. She's officially radioactive. Meaning she'll never work in her field again. I let that sink in. I didn't want that. Cole was quiet. You didn't stop it either. I didn't start it. Exactly. That evening, I walked downtown. The city glowed warm, indifferent, alive. Every streetlight, every sound of passing conversation reminded me the world kept turning, with or without our dramas. I stopped at a small bookstore, bought a used copy of The Art of Letting Go, and a bottle of sparkling water from the cafe next door. The woman at the counter smiled when she handed me my change. Rough week? She asked kindly. Transformative one, I said. She laughed. Those are the dangerous kind. Only if you look back. When I got home, I checked my email one last time before bed. There was a new message in my inbox. From Victor. Subject, please. Sable, I don't know where else to turn. Brianna's threatening to release messages between us to make me look worse. My job's gone. My reputation's gone. I just want to talk. Maybe fix things. Maybe... I don't know. You don't have to forgive me, but please, can we meet? One drink, that's all I'm asking. I read it twice, 3 times, then clicked delete. Because some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. And this one had already burned to ash. The next morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't dreamt about him. Not once. That's when I knew I was free. The kind of free that doesn't need witnesses. The kind that comes quietly, without applause. The kind that feels like oxygen you forgot was yours. Freedom is a strange thing. You expect it to feel loud, like victory music, fireworks, maybe a cinematic fade out. But it doesn't. It's quiet. It hums beneath your skin, steady and alive, like your pulse when you finally stop running. 2 weeks passed without a single message from Victor or Brianna. I almost believed the storm had passed completely, until one gray morning in late November. I'd just finished brewing coffee when the buzzer sounded. 3 short presses, a rhythm I hadn't heard in years. I froze. Then it came again. I walked to the intercom, pressed the button. Yes? It's me, the voice said. Even distorted through the speaker, I knew it instantly. Victor. When I opened the door, the air seemed to drop 10 degrees. He stood there in a wrinkled hoodie, dark circles under his eyes, hands stuffed into his pockets like he was trying to hide from the world. Can I come in? No. Sable, please. I hesitated, not because I wanted to, but because part of me wanted to see what remorse looked like on him. I left the chain lock on and cracked the door just enough to look him in the eye. You have 5 minutes. He nodded. Fair. He looked smaller somehow, like the arrogance had drained out of him and left only a man-shaped regret. I wanted to say sorry, he started. For everything. For not believing you. For humiliating you. For... His voice broke. For testing you when all you ever did was love me. I said nothing. He swallowed hard. After you left, I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just explained, but Brianna turned on me. She leaked my messages to her fiancé, to my company, to everyone. My parents won't talk to me. I can't find work anywhere. I'm staying at a friend's place, sleeping on a couch. He exhaled, shaky and small. Everyone's moved on except me. You're the only one who still feels real. Victor, I said quietly, you're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you lost control. He blinked, like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. It's completely fair, I cut in. You didn't come here to make amends. You came because you need someone to remember who you were before you ruined everything. You want absolution, not forgiveness. I loved you, he said, voice rising. You loved owning me, I replied. He went quiet, his lips trembled. Can we just talk? Maybe start over? I looked at him for a long moment. Behind him, the hallway light flickered. It struck me then. This was the same man who once told me, real love is testing loyalty. Now he was the one standing outside the door, waiting for someone to let him in. No, I said finally. You taught me that some tests don't deserve retakes. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes glistened. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Live with it, I said. Then I closed the door, slowly, deliberately, until the click echoed like a verdict. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. Rain streaked down the glass, tracing crooked rivers against the city lights. For years, I'd let that man rewrite my instincts, tell me when to speak, when to shrink, when to feel small. But tonight, I didn't feel small at all. I felt untouchable. The kind of untouchable that isn't arrogance, just clarity. A week later, Cole and his wife invited me to dinner. Their apartment smelled like rosemary and laughter, 2 things I hadn't realized I missed. Halfway through the meal, Cole clinked his glass. To my sister, the calm after the storm, he said. I laughed. I'm not calm, I'm just done. His wife smiled. Done is good. Done is powerful. Done, I echoed softly, like a promise to myself. 3 months later, I was offered a new position, regional director. New city, new office, new life. I took it. On my last night before moving, I walked to the waterfront one last time. The air was cold enough to sting, but the water shimmered under the streetlights like 1,000 new beginnings waiting to be named. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my old messages, the last ones from Victor. For a heartbeat, I hovered over his name. Then I deleted the entire thread, no hesitation. The screen went blank, so did the ache. When people ask me now what happened, I don't tell them about the recording or the scandal. I just say, I learned the difference between revenge and closure. Revenge feeds on pain. Closure starves it. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't hungry anymore. 6 months later, I woke to sunlight on my face. Not an alarm, not panic, just warmth. Seattle had finally given me a morning that didn't feel like penance. I got up, poured coffee into my favorite chipped mug, the one I'd kept through everything, and stepped onto the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the water. Different skyline, different chapter. People think healing happens all at once, like a movie montage. New haircut, new city, new smile. But healing is slower. It's the quiet cup of coffee you drink without flinching at your phone. It's catching your reflection and realizing you recognize yourself again. That was where I was now. Not happy yet, but finally whole. Work had changed too. The new office buzzed with the kind of energy that didn't hide knives behind compliments. My team respected me, not because of what I'd survived, but because of what I could build. On my second week as regional director, one of the analysts, a shy, awkward guy named Nolan, stopped by my office. He was young, brilliant, but hesitant. "Ms. Hart, can I ask something kind of personal?" "Depends," I said, smiling. "Are you about to tell me my spreadsheet formulas are inefficient?" He laughed nervously. "No, it's just people here talk about you, about how you rebuilt after everything." "Ah," I said, "the myth of the comeback." He shrugged. "Guess I just wanted to know how you did it." I thought for a moment, then said, "You stop waiting for apologies you'll never get, and you start living like the truth doesn't need an audience." He nodded slowly like he was filing that away. "Thanks, Ms. Hart." "Call me Sable," I said. He smiled and left, and I realized that might have been the first time in years I'd used my name without flinching. That night, as I unpacked the last box from my move, I found something wedged between old files. The flash drive labeled Evidence Master, the one that had once burned like a weapon in my hands. I turned it over, thumb tracing the edges. It felt lighter now, as if the data inside had lost its power. Without hesitation, I walked to the kitchen, set it on the counter, and struck a match. The plastic curled, hissed, and turned black. A small, private funeral for everything that once held me hostage. When the smoke cleared, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace, without guilt. A few weeks later, I ran into Cole at a family brunch. He watched me laugh with his kids, then leaned back in his chair and said, "Never thought I'd see you laugh like that again." "Me neither," I said, sipping my mimosa. He grinned. "So what's next for you, Miss Director?" I shrugged. "Maybe nothing dramatic for a while. Maybe that's the point." He chuckled. "You? Boring? I'll believe it when I see it." I laughed too, because maybe he was right. Life always had a way of testing me. But this time, I wasn't afraid of the next test, because now I was the one writing the questions. Later that night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. No revenge, no heartbreak, just this. I used to think closure meant the world had to see me win, but real closure is walking away while no one's watching, and being okay with that. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and let the darkness just be darkness. Not a threat, not a memory, just night. Outside, the city hummed quietly, alive and indifferent. And for once, I didn't need anyone to listen to know that I had finally, completely healed.